Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 120, where my opponent kicked off with e4, I play e5, and we got into a Ruy Lopez. So let's check it out. We'll take a look at it with the help of the opening book. This is quite a popular opening. e4, the top choice in this database. In other databases, d4 is the top choice. Depends on the game selection. And then in response to e4, e5 is the second most popular choice after c5. And so you can see, and then after this we follow the main line for quite a few moves. So knight f3 attacking the center pawn, knight c6 defending, and bishop b5, the characteristic move of the Ruy Lopez. So now we're in that opening. And now a6, the Morphy defense, bishop a4, knight f6, now counterattacking the center pawn, and white apparently ignores the threat on the center pawn. And black can take that pawn. If you want to know more about this, you can check out the Chess Basics series on the Ruy Lopez. So that's the open Ruy if you take there. You don't get to keep the pawn. White regains a pawn. If you try to hold on to it, you end up in trouble. So, but the main line is not to take, but to play bishop e7. I play bishop e7 on the next move, so I am following the main line in a slightly different move order. So I play this move first, which allows me now the choice of going bishop c5, what I call the modern main line, and bishop e7, the old traditional main line. But my intent in this game was to play the old main line here. So bishop e7, rook e1, and you can see by the number of moves, a number of games played here that we're still following a very popular main line, and d6. Now here, I could castle and threaten to play the Marshall defense. Castle on d5 is the Marshall gambit, rather. But I was playing on autopilot here, I guess, and I just went into the traditional main line. So we get a closed position, and so white starts a slow build-up in the center with c3. I castle. And now after castling, the normal move is h3 to stop me from pinning the knight. If you play h3 here, it's possible. Yeah, it's listed there. Not a very popular move. If you play h3 here, pinning the knight, I guess it's not as dangerous somehow. I never quite understood this wrinkle of move opening order, but they don't bother to play h3 in this move. They start to build up with c3, and then on the next move after black castles, then they play h3 in the main line. So up to this point, we've been in the main line, but my opponent plays d4 here, and now we're in a less popular sideline. I follow up with bishop g4. That's the logical move. He hasn't prevented the pin, and this does put pressure on the center. What it does is it prevents the move knight to d2, which is what white wants to do. He wants to do this typical knight maneuver like this, or maybe coming to the square e3. Is also a possibility. But he can't play the knight to d2 right now, because I could actually win a pawn. This knight being pinned, I could take here, he takes, then I could grab this pawn with the knight, because this knight blocks the view of the queen. So he has to play a move other than knight d2. And my opponent chose d5, which is just locking up the center, is one way to deal with that problem, and prevents me from taking. And but the most popular choice is bishop e3 there, defending that and then getting out of the way of the knight so the knight can go to d2. But d5 is another way to play it. And then knight a5, the most common response, just trying to find a good square for that knight. It may end up on c5, but I have the idea of playing this. It may end up on c4 rather, but I have the idea of playing my pawn to c4 and my knight to c5. So it's kind of my long-term maneuvering plan here to put pressure on the e-pawn. So it gives me, some reason to move. So bishop c2, main move there, and then c5. Okay, so now by c5 here, we're wandering outside. It's interesting that c6 is the most popular move here. I guess it's trying to undermine this little pawn chain here from the front. And notice he can't easily play c4 to support the center, so you can undermine that. And if he takes, knight takes, you do have a backwards d-pawn, but it's well defended, and I guess that's an okay position. But I had the idea, as I said before, playing c5, c4, and putting my knight there. Now white could, and maybe he ought to take here, and I would take back with the knight, and that would give me this backwards d-pawn, and that would give white something to play for. It's interesting that the chess engine is recommending h3 here, which is what my opponent played. So now we're out of the book. So let's go back and look at the notation tab, and we'll keep the engine turned on. There was no great tactics up until the end when my opponent blundered, so I'll just keep this on to look at the computer evaluation of the various positions that turn up. So I like the idea of keeping the pin, and then if the bishop gets chased all the way back to g6, it's hitting this e-pawn, so it's doing something useful there. So I'm not afraid of the move g4, which my opponent plays immediately. And so this move g4 actually may be somewhat of a positional mistake. It creates a weakness on the king side, and you see the evaluation declined over here, and now it favors black. And if you think about it, in this position, there's no longer this threat of me taking on d4 and winning a pawn, because he's dealt with that by pushing on to d5. So this pin doesn't matter so much. This knight does not need to move anywhere in a hurry, and the other knight will maneuver from d2, if it maneuvers from d2 to f1 to g3. That will hit the bishop. So there's actually no need to make a weakening pawn move and chase my bishop away. That's just the normal development of the knight will take care of that. And in the meantime, even though this knight is pinned, it's not really going anywhere and not doing an important job that needs taking care of. So this move g4 is probably a positional mistake. So bishop g6 and knight bd2, logical moves. That's the normal plan in the Ruy Lopez. And now I push on with my plan of c4 and knight f1, knight b7. It's interesting that the chess engine is calling out for me to play a move like h5 and try and undermine these pawns right away. And maybe I should have, because in a couple of moves he plays knight g3, and he's going to sink a knight here on f5, which is kind of annoying, and it takes me a while to deal with that. So I could have been a little more proactive and started to undermine the center before the knights got in place. Probably would have been a better way to play. But I continue with knight c5, and now he plays knight f5 and gets this good square for the knight. And now again the chess engine's recommending h5 to undermine these pawns here. But I had a different idea. First of all, I noticed this bishop is under attack, and if I move my queen, it would be hanging. So I play rook e8. It's sort of a waiting move, too, but it frees up my queen to move, and I just want to see what white is doing next. So he plays a4, and I'm not particularly worried about this threat. And the chess engine thinks it's more accurate to play b4 here and try and lock up the queen side a bit. Now, I don't know if I particularly like that move. b4, c takes b3, a takes b3. He would have these two pawns here, and it seems like the c pawn might become weak. So I'm not so sure about this b4 idea. It also likes queen e2. Okay, but a4. And now I'm come up with this plan to chase the knight away. And it shows the advantage has swung in black's favor. Once again, it got back to equal or favorable for white for a few moves. And it really doesn't like trading that black bishop, dark squared bishop for the knight. So maybe that dark squared bishop had more of a long-term future. But anyway, he's bringing his knights forward, and this allows me my plan of g6. But it says here, knight takes e7 as a possibility. Now, yeah, just taking my bishop. But he played queen to d2 instead, and I played g6, kicking the knight. And now knight h6 just leads to a draw. So might have been better to play bishop f8 first. Yeah, I could have used one more preparatory move before playing g6. The bishop is not really needed to defend the f6 pawn, but it would defend the h6 square here. So bishop f8 and then g6 is much more effective. So the way I played it, he plays knight h6 check, and I move my king up, and then he could play over here, it says. A takes, and then knight 4 to f5 check. This is kind of an interesting line. Let's take a look at it. A takes, and knight 4 to f5 check. So g takes f5, knight takes f5 check. He sacrificed a knight. The queen can come to the h6 square, so the king runs to h8. And rook takes a8, queen takes a8. And this is why the rook is defending my bishop on e7, and now queen h6. But it's interesting that this just thinks this is a draw. Bishop f8, and queen takes f6 check, king g8. It has quite a long line. Knight takes d6, bishop takes d6, queen takes d6. So he got a bunch of pawns for his piece. This would be a pretty interesting way to play. So if we can look at this, yeah, okay, that was a real long sequence. So going back to this position, that was exchanging over here and sacrificing a knight on f5 and then bringing the queen in and gobbling up some pawns. Oh, trading off the rook to draw my queen away from the action. Exchanging here, pawns, exchanging rooks, and then sacrificing a knight on f5. So interesting concept. He played knight takes f7, a much more sort of natural way to play, and I played king takes f7, and then queen to h6 here. And I didn't really notice, but I could have defended. If you see, rook h8 is the way for black to play and keep the advantage. I just played king g8 kind of reflexively defending that pawn. I forgot the rook could defend it. And that allows this sacrifice. So knight takes g6, h takes g6, and queen takes g6, and it's just a draw because I can't escape the check. So that's evaluated at 0-0. But he didn't want to draw. He wanted to play on, so rook e3. But rook e3 is a horrible blunder. If he wasn't going to play knight takes g6, he could play, what, knight f3, try and reposition this knight. I wonder if he could play rook f1 to f4. That's a possibility too. Rook f1. And yeah, but bishop f8 chasing the queen away. I guess his attack is pretty much gone. So rook e3 was an attempt to keep the attack going, but it blocked the escape of his queen, and now bishop f8 just traps the queen. And so it's game over. He played on a few more moves. Game ended like this. And now the knight's trapped there too, so he resigned. But it was a pretty interesting game up to that point, and an example of a closed maneuvering style of game, different than a lot of games that I play, which are more tactical in nature. So I hope you guys enjoyed that and the exposition here. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again later. Bye.